5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, welcome to another episode of Trading WTF. I'm Michael Buchbinder, partner at Scandinavian Capital Markets, and today we have Simon and Jonathan joining us. In this episode of Trading WTF, we have two guests with backgrounds in providing services to brokers, helping them launch and operate their businesses. We're going to start by discussing some interesting developments in the markets, then move on to some questions for our guests. Simon Buchbinder has 10 years of experience in the fintech industry, working in different startups and roles. He started his fintech career in Cyprus-based FX and CFD technology provider Spotware, helping brokerages worldwide launch cTrader as the company's first dedicated business developer. Simon spent a few years working on launching his startup focused on CRM technology for brokers. Simon then was asked to lead the brokerage and asset management tech provider Tradesocio to establish their operations in Cyprus and throughout Europe. He manages most of the business development and support functions and runs their European operation. Tradesocio was recently acquired by Singapore-based wealth tech giant Bamboo. Jonathan Baumgart is an entrepreneur with almost 2 decades of experience in the foreign exchange industry. He is the founder and CEO of Atomic with a Q Consulting, a firm specializing in the online trading industry. The company helps FX brokers, liquidity providers, white labels, and software firms with licensing, corporate services, and outsourcing. Early in his career, Jonathan launched the FXCM office in Berlin, trained the staff, and helped establish the operations. Later, he became director of training and development at the now defunct Boston Technologies, where he was responsible for company-wide training on FX, MT4, and proprietary solutions. Well, that makes sense why you're doing everything you're doing at Atomic.
Exactly.
Excellent. I guess everything we say there is it's not directed as trading advice. Everything we're trying to do is just share some knowledge today and have some fun. If there's anything I missed, anything I should add, or anything you'd like to add, Simon or Jonathan?
No, just about the trading advice. If you want technology and all the other stuff, please, Michael, but trading advice, don't go to me, go somewhere else, please. Okay?
Same. I second that. Do the opposite of what I would suggest.
Cool. Well, I guess, how did you guys both get involved in the fintech industry? And yeah. Sorry, Simon, let's give it a start.
Okay, perfect. As all good things, Michael, it was kind of random, kind of chance, really. I started actually in as an auditor in back in Denmark, but it was a bit, same stuff, and a bit too stuck for me, really. So I ended up in Cyprus. I knew a couple of people working down here, and when I came 10 years ago, if you wanted to go somewhere, it was trading, it was CFDs, forex, and I spent a bit of time in some brokerages, and then I ended up doing fintech, and that just stuck with me. And the whole kind of helping a broker to launch his business, to look at his processes and so on, it was just I got stuck in it. I'm still here, right, Michael? So and I have been a bit around lots of stuff in fintech, and it just gets more and more amazing. And with all the new stuff coming up.
How about yourself, Jonathan?
Great. Well, thanks for having me, and welcome to everyone. So, as you mentioned in the bio, I used to work at Boston Technologies, and that was very inspirational at the time because that was a company that was growing rapidly. And I got the bug. I wanted to do something myself. So while I was there, I got exposed to the institutional side of the FX business, to the technology side. Previously, I'd only worked at a retail broker, and that was more just exposure to sales. That's the role I found myself in back then. So at BT, I had access to all these different areas, and I decided to take the plunge myself. It's unfortunate what happened to BT, but a little while after I started my own firm, they had some issues, and now they're no longer around. But I had enough experience back then to launch my own venture, and I began by doing IT work, outsourcing work with MT4. We still do it, but we've expanded into other things. But that's been the backbone of my company. And So I started my firm in 2014. So I've been in this space since then, and prior to that was just FX, but they all kind of combined.
Sweet. And Simon, can you tell us a little bit about Tradesocio, what they do, what their services are, products, and how people can use them?
Definitely. So basically, Michael, we have been on a bit of a voyage really since I joined almost 6 years ago, actually, in Cyprus, where we started up as mainly providing copy trading solutions, social solutions for brokers, a lot of with a view to automating different processes for their marketing, for onboarding of clients, and we kind of spent a few years on that. We got some clients, and then our products actually evolved more into investment management solutions. We also launched a trading platform, share trading, ETF trading, and then we started really moving more into the asset management space. And then, as you mentioned, Michael, this summer we have had a really busy time because we got acquired by a company in Singapore called Bamboo, and they are more into robo-advisory solutions. So basically now we're trying to tie together the two companies, whereas their company is more, it's robo-advisory, it's big asset management firms, banks who want to offer an easy-to-use user interface for their clients to do investments. And now we're trying to plug in the very heavy back office brokerage technology that we have into their various solutions. So it's a lot of work, but it's very exciting to kind of find out where we end with all that.
Nice. Well, there's a big trend happening with online platforms and being able to invest in that. I'd like to touch on that shortly, and let's understand a little bit about Jonathan and what his services are in the market right now.
So we deal with established brokers as well as those who are new to the marketplace. So a lot of traders have a crossover with launching a business because they're trading themselves, they see the opportunity. So, we provide them with guidance on all aspects of the industry, not just technology, guidance in licensing and banking, which is becoming more challenging, even selecting software, which is something we're touching upon. And we can help you via, one of my partners and a firm I'm a director in, even build your own custom software as opposed to leasing it out. In addition, like I mentioned, we can help you navigate all the payment challenges. I mean, usually it comes down to licensing. The reality is it's hard to kind of launch a broker from your basement like you could maybe 10 or 15 years ago. Now it's more serious. You need to have a license to do it. So we provide guidance on that. And then a few other areas like lead generation, other topics, content writing, we build websites. So we try to do everything, and while that sounds like we're spread all over the place, because of all the years we've been doing this, we happen to be specialized in these areas. So the things that we do, we can do very well. And on any of those topics, we can explore any of them further if you find it interesting today.
Definitely, Michael. I would definitely, and I have actually worked with Jonathan a few times during the years. And sometimes you get a client, he wants to start up a company. Okay, I want to be a broker, right? Okay, how much money do I have to know about licenses? What are you going to do with deposits, banks, and payments? And it just turns out that you have this guy. Okay, he's really good at marketing. He has a network and so on, but he just needs to go to someone like Jonathan to kind of, get advice on all this stuff, because you have so many people who think, okay, I'll just get a license for an MT4 platform, I'll launch the broker, and I'll be a millionaire in 2 months, right? But it doesn't. I'm okay, maybe 10 years ago, like you said, Jonathan, but today it just doesn't work, right? And even 10 years ago, it didn't really work for these guys either. So I definitely concur that you do need advice from someone who is specialized in kind of having an all-round picture on everything you need to have as a broker. 100%.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we've got a client that came in and is like, we've got 200 million in assets. We want to be able to bring them into the brokerage. And they're like, we want to start our own. And they're like, okay, let's pay for the white label. I'm like, well, how are you going to take on money? Where is it going to go to? So like, do you have a company yet? So I was like, So yeah, I'll be talking to Jonathan, asking him, okay, where do you go to get started? That's not, you don't always want to go the quickest way because you might have problems down the road getting the banking. So you got good things take time.
And especially now, Michael, regarding banking PSPs, it's getting more and more difficult. And if you don't have a license now, I mean, it's not going to work for you. 5 years ago, yes. Now it's not going to work.
Agreed. Yeah, and thank you for bringing that topic up. I mean, it actually leads to something interesting. Is now there's a bit of a rift because this is something people may be interested in hearing, but there are firms now that are operating purely on a crypto basis. And in some cases, we're telling them, the banks don't want to deal with you. I understand why. I mean, I understand from the banking perspective that this industry is high risk. I think it's gone a little bit too far, where the banks themselves are more than the regulators. So it forces people into a position because it can be a leap to get a license. So now some people just say, you know what, we're operating purely on crypto. And for the retail side, from the investor standpoint, that has some pros and cons because, yeah, you can deposit it in crypto, it's fast, but anyone who understands crypto knows it's a one-way street. So you don't have that same level of protection that regulation brings. But nevertheless, I think it's an interesting shift that we're seeing because I think the banks have gone so extreme by rejecting all the business that now they're forcing startups into this gray territory, and we'll see what the future brings with that.
Yeah, definitely. There are pros and cons, like you say, Jonathan. It's and things are happening now, right? I mean, you have in some ways barriers of entry are just super low now, but on the other hand, you have, I mean, what happened in China about the crypto crackdown. When it was 6 months ago, right? And the European Union is starting now, but on the other hand, you have all these small guys operating out from Asia. It's a bit of a mess now. I definitely agree, and it's not good for investors, for traders, for anyone. I mean, there needs to be some more clarity, definitely.
Well, I just saw an article or something like that about Barclays not allowing clients to send or receive money from crypto firms or something like that. So
yeah.
So it's interesting what's going to happen. Some banks are going to play, some banks aren't going to play. And then if the governments tell the banks they can't play, then all the banks want to stay in business are going to say sorry.
I think, Michael, what is going to happen that some of the really big banks, for them, they know there's going to be more, maybe not necessarily, I think the FX and online trading, it doesn't really matter here, but money laundering, potential problems of all that, right? That the banks, the bigger ones at least, they're just not going to touch it. They know it's going to be tough in a few years' time when European Union starts to make things a lot more hard on them. But who knows? I mean, it just moves so fast now, right?
Yeah, it's tough to say. I mean, I think we're witnessing a lot of changes because I don't believe crypto would be as popular if it weren't for a lot of this stringent, banking rules. And you can see it in the UK with this example that if they don't even want to go near it, then all you're doing is making crypto more attractive. And it's Pandora's box has been opened. It's not something that only a handful of people know about. So they're going to have to deal with it. And depending on how strict the rules go, I mean, it could be an extreme case where they can't do it. But if there's some kind of leniency, then I imagine for a lot of these challenging banks, or challenger banks, I think what they're called, or EMI companies. But in any case, technology always outpaces rules. So by the time they come up with some legislation, there'll be 5 other coins or 10 other coins that get around all of this. So it's too late, and I think the world is going to have to deal with it one way or the other, positive or negative.
Definitely, and if you look a bit outside Europe and the US, Jonathan, now, if you look at Africa, if you look at South America, where you had Venezuela and all the countries with these huge currency crises, right, Nigeria quite recently, where you just have kind of a vacuum that is getting filled by people using Bitcoin, people using crypto, that is not going to go away. I mean, it is not. Europe is just really conservative, and but I definitely agree with you, Jonathan, on that one.
You mentioned something that it's way too attractive. What makes it attractive, and to who does it make it attractive to?
Sure, I can. I mean, from a business standpoint, because I have clients all over the world. I think all of us are, doing that just by the nature of FX. I mean, if I want to get a small bank wire, and I always mention this as the use case, I have to draft an invoice, I have to put in the SWIFT code, I have to check the address, I have to plug it into the banking system. And if they're, let's say, in Asia, for example, that won't be an instant process because you have different banking hours. I'm talking about a smaller sum of money. Or I can just say, here's my wallet, and then like that, I have the money. I mean, it's not perfect. There's downsides. Like I said, you can't get your money back. But for a small sum, I mean, come on. What is the point of going through all that hassle of sending a bank wire and paying a fee that's going to be usually more, like $15 or so, to send 300? So it doesn't make sense. I mean, from a small business standpoint, I'd say that's very attractive. And I mean, this could be a much longer answer, not to mention the appreciation, staking, the fact that you can earn interest when you can't at banks. There's a lot of things.
And I guess
you want to answer some parts, Simon, on that one.
Yeah, no, I definitely. I was actually thinking of an example I had a few months back. For our company in Cyprus, we terminated a service agreement with some company in the UK, and it turned out we owed them £50 for. £80, sorry, for the termination because of this and that, and we ended up paying €50 for the transfer. For sending them £80, right? And I mean, it's definitely. And I was also thinking, Jonathan, if you look at all the domestic workers from Southeast Asia, from the Middle East, working in other countries, right? The amounts they're sending home, and imagine how much money they're paying Western Union or some other, let's say, similar services, right? When you could pay nothing for a crypto transfer, and it's happening, right? I mean, there are lots of holes here and there where it definitely makes sense for people to be using the services, and where it should be made easier and safer by regulators instead of just cracking down on everything, right?
And plus, I mean, I mentioned briefly, but I just thought it's worth highlighting. It's something I didn't know, but a lot of exchanges now offer staking, where you buy these coins, and that's the risk, that the coins may depreciate. But you lock them in for a certain period of time, and you earn more coins, like you earn interest, because now you can't earn interest anymore from banks. So once again, it's now this technology is replacing the services that banks used to offer. Back in the day, you could earn interest. Now, in some places in Europe, you get money deducted for the luxury. What is the purpose then? You might as well keep it in crypto. At least you get something. I mean, it's risky, of course, but if you hedge and everything else, and you have a good plan, then that's a way to earn interest with relatively lower risk versus having your money bled away. Or in the case you mentioned, Simon, in a lot of these emerging economies, inflation can just eat up any money you have, much more than the kind they talk about in the Western world.
Just to add something, Jonathan, one thing I've been through the different companies I've been working with providing technology and so on. I've really, regarding crypto for the last 5 years, what I've seen, especially again in Asia, all these ICOs and the scams and all that. And 3 years back, you just had everyone like, no, I don't want to do FX. I don't want to do CFDs. We're making an ICO, right? Mm-hmm. And then kind of, as Bitcoin dropped heavily 2 years ago, then you just had all these scams breaking down, and which is obviously bad. I mean, a lot of people lost money, but as I see now, it's actually a lot more serious projects coming up, and investors are a bit more, not just jumping onto everything, and you actually have a lot of good stuff going on now, Jonathan. I think it's things are moving in the right direction. I mean, you kind of filter out all the bad stuff, and people get more educated and so on. So I think we'll see something very interesting, like in the next few years on that front.
Agreed. I mean, that's a very good point to mention. I mean, something that people forget with stocks is that during the big crash in 2008, I believe Amazon lost 90% or so of its value. I mean, don't hold me to that, but it lost a significant amount during that bubble. And going back further to the .com bubble, you had companies like eBay, Amazon that basically were decimated. But look at the monsters they've become now. I mean, they're massive behemoths. So yes, you are going to have these market cycles, but in my opinion, I think this is the newer kind of .com, and I think it'll be more volatile, and there'll be a lot of these boom and bust cycles.
Yeah.
But what we're looking at are things that will be in the projects or ventures in the next years. But just like there was pets.com in America, there's going to be a lot of these coins that will end up worthless, and that's the risk that everyone has to take.
And I think something that needs to happen also, Jonathan, is that the whole crypto sphere, all other coins, they have been so dependent on Bitcoin, right? And they still are. And it's just going up and down. And I think at some point we'll just have enough, let's say, decent other coin options. So it doesn't matter so much. We'll get rid of some of this volatility and where it doesn't matter what Elon Musk he just tweeted yesterday for the Bitcoin price, right? Where we actually create something stable with without this dependency on Bitcoin. It's not good for crypto, to be honest. I believe.
Yeah, agreed. And I mean, that's I think for anyone listening, if you're interested in crypto, Bitcoin captures all of the news and everything. But what I didn't even realize is there's a whole world of coins. There's very cool things that are going on. And, that's kind of the diva of crypto. Everyone hears that. There's many interesting projects. A lot of them are concepts. They won't work out. But if you just scratch the surface, I mean, Bitcoin is just one of many coins. I mean, I don't think anything will ever experience the growth it had, but there's so many interesting projects and things going on with Ethereum, with Polkadot, Theta, all these. There's too many even to name. It could be a 10-hour podcast. But if you're interested in this, there's a whole world you can explore. A lot of things. We'll see if they work or not. But to me, I find it very, very interesting and fascinating.
Well, I guess you hit on some of those key points that make it attractive. One, they solve some key problems. The remittance industry is absolutely huge, billions and billions of dollars all across the world of people trying to send money to their families. And I think another thing that made it very interesting is the fact that it's the volatility in it is people are interested in quick money, I think, and and that's been very attractive to them. It's like, oh, I can make this much money doing this or this much money doing that. So it's a lot of people have been chasing the tide, and I guess for individual players in the market, for them it's how do they understand what's safe to put their money in, what's not safe to put their money in, because there's so many of these get rich quick people out there saying, I made money, look at me, look at my lifestyle, and look at that. And people are like getting sucked into it. Like I had a friend of mine who's rather sophisticated individual. He's like, yeah, someone told me that I trusted that you can make X amount returns on a monthly basis. And I'm like, I don't know, you gotta really be careful on that. And he's like, yeah, they told me to open an account with this brokerage. And then what I have to do is send my money to this PSP provider or exchanger. They'll give me Bitcoin. And then I send the Bitcoin to this address. And I'm just like, well, if they're a brokerage, they should be able to accept wires. I'm like, show me your trading statement. He's like, well, I don't get trading statements. I just get access to a back-end platform where it shows me how much my account is growing or how much I make each day. And I'm like, so all they're doing is just posting numbers to your account, making you think it's growing. So you're going to send more money. And then when the time comes to withdraw, you're screwed. I'm like, these are just pictures of people in like places all over the world. And I'm like, he's like, oh, at least I learned a lesson. I'm like, you learned a lesson, but you won't pay for yourself to go on a vacation for $2,000 or $3,000. You won't go on a vacation, but you'll take a $10,000 lesson.
But I think also, Mike, there's still tons of stuff like that out there. But if you compare now to 10 years ago, I mean, it's getting. I don't know if it's regulation, if what it is, but things are getting a bit better. And I think, Jonathan, from what you said before, I definitely agree that you need to find some kind of middle way, but that you don't allow anyone with $10,000 to get a platform license and scam people or set up a nice website and so on. That's definitely a good thing, I think.
Agreed.
Any idea on NFTs and what the value is behind those?
Yeah, I'll take that. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm skeptical of it because not so much related to this podcast, but I like to collect sports cards, and I like the idea of something physical. And it could be my age where I'm skeptical of it, but I cannot see, me personally, the value in just an image. And I get the whole idea of, well, you can print out a copy of a Picasso, or you can have the real thing. One is worth millions of dollars, but see, that's the whole point, is it's a physical copy. I mean, I think the attraction of a painting is the fact you can go into a museum and you can see it. But just to have something on your phone, I mean, I get it if it's a coin because you can do something with it. And granted, you could trade NFTs, but I don't see the use case for it. Crypto, I see value because it can do many things. NFT, I think, is trying to go along those lines, but I've yet to be convinced, and I haven't put any money into it as of yet.
Yeah, same. Yeah, definitely. That's an important point, I think, Jonathan. That okay, you have, let's take Bitcoin again. Okay, Bitcoin, it could be considered an investment asset or vehicle or whatever, right? But it actually has use. That's a pretty important point. There is that side too.
Could you maybe attach the digital to the physical? Is that possible?
Then it kind of eliminates the point of the NFT. Then I mean, then it's just I guess you could, if you get maybe a certificate or something, or it's printed out, and then you can also have it next to you. I mean, I think when people heard Bitcoin, they all said the same thing. So I could, I'll be the first to admit, I could be completely off the mark, but I'm just telling you why I have yet to be convinced on this idea. And it could just be people are into this hype of new things, and there's a lot of inventions that sound interesting at the time and sputter out and don't take off. So
yeah,
I'm on the fence. We'll have to see, but I'm yet to be convinced.
Yeah. And in terms of, I guess, Jonathan, we talked the other day a little bit about, some of the new things that are trending for traders, and you're saying
Sure.
Right now there's a big trend with regards to prop trading and stuff like that. So what are you seeing in that area? And then probably it reflects back to Simon and what's going on with Tradesocio.
Yeah, so this model just grew organically. I mean, the way I heard about it was on my YouTube channel. Someone asked to make a video. And I mean, the general idea of prop trading has been around since investing has been around. You basically have a group of investors trade a portfolio. I mean, this is not anything new, but it's what we're referring to here is something different. It just has adopted this term. This model is basically businesses that are offering a subscription service to demo trade. So it's not real money, which is a unique kind of idea. And if you can reach a certain performance, which is set by criteria the broker set, meaning you can't have a drawdown that exceeds X, and you must do this many trades. So I won't get into all the details, but basically, if you can match that criteria, then even though you didn't put any money in yourself, you'll be compensated for it. And we've been getting a lot of inquiries about how to start it, how to launch it. Is a license needed? Many common questions. So this is an interesting trend, and I think it's a direct result of lockdowns, the kind of Robinhood thing, the fact that so many people now had free time on their hands sitting at home, that on their second monitor or on their phone while they're working, they said, hey, let me get into trading. And it spilled over into our world of effects. And so now there are some firms that are growing rapidly and doing really well off of this model, which is different from what we've seen traditionally. Not sure what you've seen, Simon, on your side.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's kind of one of the main things we actually have been doing at Tradesocio, really, Jonathan and Michael. So we have clients who are like, let's say, 100% asset management firms, but a separate, let's say, type of clients is actually FX brokers who say, okay, so we have MetaTrader, we have a PAM, we have a MAM, we have analytics, we offer all this, but we have 1,000 other FX brokers who offer exactly the same, right? So how can we offer something a little bit different than that to focus on something else? And then what the, let's say, the clients we have had who have really made money on, gotten a lot of clients and offering an investment service, they have been able to actually set a strategy. They have focused on it. They have hired a department who actually know about how to run an investment service, how to market it, because it's different. But if you put in the resources, it works. It pays off. I had a couple of clients in Southeast Asia who had more client money than any broker in Cyprus, apart from maybe 5 or 6, right? They were 10 people, right? But they found the strategy to really offer, let's say, a specific service focused on investment management, and then it works. But on the other hand, I have also had clients and seen a lot of brokers who say, okay, we need social trading, we need copy trading. They put a link on their website, and then they don't get clients, because why should they come, right? You really need to focus on it.
Sure.
And it's also kind of, for me, it's a way forward for brokers to get some differentiation, because I mean, let's face it, right? Most brokers, they're the same, right? Some are better at doing some things, some are worse at other things, and so on. But brokers need to differentiate themselves. I mean, that's how it is from my point of view.
Well, that's a good point, Simon. I mean, for people who are listening to this, they're interested in the prop model. You know, what's nice, and I've mentioned this to those that I speak with, is you're targeting profitable traders, or those who can establish positive track records. So if your business model is to offer the subscription service, it's only logical to kind of add on a social trading component to it.
Definitely.
Because then you don't have to rely solely on subscriptions. You can also offer it to people who, just like traders, realize, I don't have time for this, or I'm more interested, so I'd rather follow somebody, or I'd rather go this route. Because a lot of people try trading, but because they don't have time, or it's not for them, and they can jump onto this model. And a prop trading company, or the one doing this, are better than most at finding those who are doing well. And then it's a win-win, because they retain the client, they retain the volume, plus others can benefit from it. So I think it's an interesting development.
Because the second problem for lots of brokers is also that if you run with a model where it works, like you said, Jonathan, that traders, they either stay a while, do a few trades, and find out, okay, it's not working, I'm not making money, let me do something else. Or some of them will blow their accounts, and that's just a lot of the accounts going in that way, right? But if the brokers, they focus on prop trading, they will just grow their AUM. They will grow. They don't need to spend a lot of time on finding new clients, spending. I mean, we all know how much marketing campaigns, Google ads cost to get FX clients, right? And it's not a viable model. And that's also why we see, or at least one of the main reasons, as I see it, why a lot of brokers, they run out of money after 1 year, right? Because it's just too expensive. It's not a viable model unless, I mean, you have a niche, or you're really big, or have a lot of backing behind you, right? So definitely.
Well, that raises another point. I mean, I wrote an article earlier in the week about this topic, and it does dovetail into what you're offering as well. Is if you're a broker, like you said, what is the difference between one white label broker and another? I mean, besides the logo, it's the same software. If you can offer something unique, I mean, the marketing term is called stickiness. That keeps the client more loyal, because one thing that anyone knows working at a broker is onboarding a client, especially with all the regulations we have, is no easy task. So it's a lot of time and effort to just onboard someone. And if they're going to just leave because they're using the same platform and the spread is 0.1 better, then you need something to entice them. So if they have something unique, like a social trading platform, or something custom that's not a leased model, that is going to keep clients more loyal to you. And I think it can help to better grow the revenue of the broker and make it more predictable, because you're not constantly bleeding clients away on this leasing model. So that's something 100%. Interesting that I've seen from my perspective.
I love how you guys are diagnosing all my problems for me.
I'm sure Jonathan will help you for a small fee after the webinar.
There you go. There you go. But it's about, I guess, definitely differentiating and being able to. once you go on a certain path, you got to be able to stick with it and make sure it makes sense. And at the end of the day, like, all we're trying to do is just figure out what the clients are looking for and how the world is evolving. So
Yeah.
I guess with COVID, like, what have you seen with the world of trading, and how has it changed from where it was to where it is and where it's going?
Yeah, so let me say a few comments first, Michael. So what we have seen, like with our clients and let's say business coming in and out and so on, we at the beginning of COVID we had quite a boom actually. Everyone was doing great volumes and so on. People were sitting home, spending their money that they weren't spending on going out for whatever they used to go out for,
Yeah.
right? But the last time, I mean, it's getting harder, right? We have seen some businesses say, okay, it's enough, right? So. Yeah, who knows? I mean, hopefully we'll get out soon, but I don't know. It's difficult for everyone. I don't know, Jonathan, what your experience is.
Yes, from our side, we noticed a big uptick in inquiries and requests. It was very busy time for us, although I wish it wasn't the case. I mean, I don't like that a pandemic brought about this, but I don't think you can ignore the fact that the pandemic did have a big impact on markets. I mean, I think it was because U.S. monetary policy tends to dictate the market as a whole. So all of these emergency measures, the printing of money by the Fed, everything else, really set the market into this crazy, let's say, volatility gear. Plus, you have cryptocurrencies, and that made trading very enticing. And so, in my opinion, I think we're going to still see a lot of volatility. We're probably going to keep seeing stocks make these record levels, but we'll also see a lot of interesting things happen until, let's say, the world gets back to normal. And then I would imagine one of two things will happen. Either inflation will get out of control. I'm speaking of U.S. policy, but in the U.S., the inflation will get out of control, and finally the Fed will have to put the brakes on things. And I think that will create a big correction if they start raising interest rates, but that will lead to more volatility, right? So I think either that will happen, or the other option, I think, is that things kind of stay as they are, and we might just be in this bull market area for quite a while. I mean, I don't know. It's very uncharted territory. I mean, never, I think, has the stock market been so high, and you have is Bitcoin really worth $39,000? I don't know. I mean, it just seems it's crazy. So we could just keep having this for the next few years. Maybe in the fourth year podcast, we're still talking about stocks going up. It's tough to say.
Yeah, who knows? Who knows? It's difficult. It is.
Well, if they start pulling their support, it's going to get messy pretty quickly. And once the U.S. feels it, everyone else is going to feel it. You're going to see all the real estate prices that have been bubbling up over top. Those are going to be falling. People won't be able to take care of their mortgages. It's kind of like you're just going to see but that's what cycles do. That's part of the cycle as well. But it's whether they're going to let the natural cycle take effect or whether they're going to, keep the artificial run going. But it's definitely part of the cycle, and we'll see at what point it goes like the taper tantrum.
It better not guess now. I think if I was just reading an article about COVID in China is coming up again. I mean, if they have another major pandemic, who knows? It's just I just don't want to guess anything at the moment. It's just so volatile, so insecure. It's
How much money can each central bank keep printing before
Exactly.
That's the question, because in theory, if the dollar is the world's reserve currency, I guess you can play around with it. We're gonna find out what will happen.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's what I don't know if the digital yuan can really take effect, because China has the ability to just say yes or no to anyone at a given second, and no one's going to take your U.S. dollars away from you unless you do something really bad. And I think that would be the only thing affecting the digital yuan from taking over the U.S. as a reserve currency until you can get that type of trust going behind it. But if it does get that trust, they'll be doing something different. But another way that they're getting trust is just by buying up everything around them and giving everyone the yuan. So if you flood the market and buy everything with it, then people are going to.
But it does not. I mean, everyone I was at least expecting Biden to have a bit more softer approach on China than Trump, right? But it doesn't seem like he has just doubled up. I mean, it's in. I'm not sure. I'm not sure he will let them. I mean, he will be pushing China's neighbors and so on. It's. But you're right, Michael. That it would take something like that to actually affect it. But who knows?
Yeah, I think it'll be tough. I mean, for now, I just think that the dollar is so ubiquitous. I mean, if you look at what's the next currency, I guess you could say the euro, but there's plenty of problems in Europe, especially economically. I mean, it's not that stable of an economic area. I mean, it's a lot of countries are more vassal states, are really depending on the growth of the others. So it's not like there's real currency. Yeah, yes, definitely. China is the big competitor, but I don't know if it could be enough for complete displacement. I think
not, at least not the next 10 years. I don't believe so.
Yeah. Well, coming here to Mexico as the pandemic was, right in the middle of it, the heart of it, you've seen like lots of production kind of soften over here, at least for a little bit, because they didn't know what to do. And then all of a sudden you had the army out on all these different streets to prevent some issues, which is what's going on in South Africa right now. People are defending their communities from riots. So there's definitely been an effect. And right now they got the factories going at like medium speed, and everyone's feeling it a little bit. But I guess maybe taking things on a little shift. I was just looking at some of the different articles today, and I saw one of the titles is Kiwi investors prefer online investment platforms to access financial markets. So we're definitely seeing a rise in fintech. I think this is the time for fintech. This is where people take control of their finances. I guess. What does the future look like in terms of fintech, and and then maybe we can go into how to build those platforms and what those look like.
Let me start there, Michael. So what let's say another thing we've been trying to do at Tradesocio, and which is also really the speciality of Bamboo that we're joining now, right, is to automate investment processes, is to put everything on the mobile, to take out as much, let's say, human interaction as you can. So I have an amount of money I want to invest, open my mobile, download the app from the bank or asset manager or whatever, answer a few easy questions, and then just let the AI behind the scene take care of everything and make a really what is actually a tailor-made product for me, whether I want to have a retirement fund and an education fund for my children or whatever it is. And it's just the way things are going, but it's actually, it's you'd be amazed on how many financial institutions, and let's say outside the FX, CFD trading space, which are super conservative. They want to do the things the way they have been doing for the last 20 years. They don't want to change anything, but it's picking up. I mean, but it is actually, you'd be amazed, Michael, believe me, how conservative asset management and banking actually still is. It's crazy.
So I would see it in two areas. On the trading side, I'd mentioned the topic of client stickiness. So like I mentioned, I'm an independent director of a company called FTC Tech. And what they're doing is helping brokers develop their own custom platforms. So instead of relying on a very popular leased model, we can either give you a platform that you can customize so it doesn't look like any other, or we can even give you a source code and help you to build it. And I think that in the FX space will be the future, as there's been kind of some weird things going on with MT4 and MT5. MT4 is kind of a legacy platform now, but it's so popular. But I think it's popular because it's the most sticky platform.
It is definitely.
Everyone knows that, but how much longer can it be around? And when is Medicoats going to pull the plug on it? And will MT5 be able to fill that role? So, FTC Tech sees that, and they're also developing more, I'm going to call it gamified platforms that are more like the Robinhood model, because, this whole situation over the past couple of years has showed that you need more than just a standard platform. You also need something to get, let's say, a younger crowd of investors who are more used to seeing apps that make it simple than, even something like a standard trading platform is a little bit too advanced and clunky for, younger investors who want to see something that looks, I don't like to use the word game, but it's investing is anything but a game, but has more of that interface, if that makes sense.
Definitely, and if you look at some of the really, let's say the most successful brokers, I mean, you mentioned Robinhood, but also let's say in the FX CFD space, if you look at Plus 500, you look at eToro, you look at some of these guys, they don't have MT4, they don't have MT5, they have their own things, and that's why they're different. That's why the clients stick, like you said, Jonathan. Definitely, 100%.
Yeah, and I would say just on the bigger picture outside of our world, I mean, what I'm seeing now is just like any, banks are large institutions. So any large institution is, it's like a aircraft carrier in the ocean. To turn, it takes forever. And on the banking side, you have a lot of these EMI or e-wallet companies that are popping up that are just improving upon the slowness of banks. I saw one LinkedIn post where I think it took someone 28 days to get their card from Barclays or some EU bank, and you can get now an EMI. It can be set up within the day, and you're ready to go and you have it. So I think this is the future. That you're just going to see more and more smaller firms that are going to take on a younger clientele, and so you're going to have just a kind of scattering of all these small banks. And on the fintech side, each one, like you mentioned, Simon, each one needs a CRM, each one needs a front end, a back end, an API. So it's going to be a massive explosion of growth for all of these institutions. So if you're in fintech, I think you're in a good position career-wise.
Hopefully, but Jonathan, if you look at the amount of money that investors are pouring into fintech, I mean, China, especially in the US, right? It's I read it the other day. I think is it 40-50% of all venture capital goes into fintech? I mean, it's and it's not a coincidence, but maybe there's a bit of a bubble in it also, but there definitely still is a lot of scope to automate, to digitize a lot of stuff. I mean, if you look at insurance, if you look at obviously banking, not only wealth management and so many other things, there's still a lot of things where we'll see a lot of development in the coming years, 100%.
Indeed, and I would say to add one more layer, if you bring blockchain into it, you have this whole idea of DeFi, which is taking the manual aspect of many parts of contracts and automating them. And I will admit, I don't fully understand exactly how each aspect works, but instead of relying so much on a human being to take care of different processes, like paying out different dividends or executing things, it's all done in the blockchain. So when you connect that, I think that combination will really, for lack of a better term, revolutionize how we do things on the payment side for all of us, for everybody,
100%.
In our field.
Even connecting, your different bank accounts and your different financial pieces of information to get you qualified for a mortgage, for insurance, like you said, all those things can be easily done by having the right algorithms, connect everything, assess the information, and put it through. Like, I'm doing life insurance stuff and health insurance stuff. I'm connecting this and connecting that. Why can't I just give them why can't I sign a form that says you get access to my health my health provider and they can give you all my information. At the end of the day, I'm signing a piece of paper that's saying you can go to my health provider to get the information. Why can't I just sign it? You go get the information, then give me a quote. Why do I got to fill this information out? And you want to see if I'm truthful or not. You're going to anyways go check it and get the information from them after I fill out my forms. What's the point of the double work?
Yeah. But here you also have a separate part, and you have, like, let's say, all these government agencies and so on. And I mean, some countries are pretty far, but it's not, I mean, most countries are not. I mean, I don't know too much about the US, Michael, but if you look at Europe, it's maybe a handful of countries who actually have digitized quite a lot and kind of trying to get all these registers together and health information and so on. There's still a lot of scope for improvement, definitely. And I think, Jonathan, that blockchain, one of the places where we're going to see blockchain actually really changing things is for different contracts, but also for information, verified information from different sources. For example, like you said, Michael, if you want life insurance, you need verified information from different providers and so on. And blockchain is an obvious candidate to verify that, definitely.
You both mentioned when you were talking about the different fintech stuff. Simon, you mentioned ease of use. Jonathan, you said pretty much the same thing, but gamify things. What are what is it that we need to make easy or gamify for people to be able to take more control? I think sorry, I'm answering this, but I think number one is I think everything has to be mobile, like mobile.
Yeah.
But aside from that, what are like the key pieces of information that they need to be able to help them make decisions? Make it easy for them to make decisions, because it's got to be simple. They can't be looking for buttons. And then, as you say, gamify, keep them coming back for more.
Yeah. If I can put a few words first, so one thing that we have kind of learned, and me personally also is less is more. Always less is more. You want to put in so much functionality and so many things for the clients, or for the users, but it always end up being too much, right? So definitely that would be one thing. I mean, it's kind of hype maybe, but the younger generation, I'm a bit old in that regard, to be honest. I'm still, I like my laptop, I like to have things like on my desk and so on, but younger people, it's different. It needs to be mobile, it needs to be easy, it needs to be it doesn't need to be 10, it cannot be 10 steps, it needs to be 3 steps maximum to open an account and so on. 100 definitely. What do you think, Jonathan, about
I think Simon pretty much summed it up there. I mean, there's a great book that I would recommend to anyone in marketing called Paradox of Choice. And the book mentions how when you give people more and more choices, that they become overwhelmed, and often they don't have a product or service. So, if you've ever been to a restaurant and you say, "Hey, can I get a burger?" and they say, "Well, do you want the bread toasted, or do you want this cooked this way? Do you want to get this?" And when it's like being interviewed by the airport security food, it turns people off. So I agree with you. I think the simplicity side is really what's needed, and that's the challenge, right? Because in our industry, FX is the most complicated and sophisticated market out there, with swaps, with leverage, with different trading hours, pairs, margin requirements, the different rules for countries. The challenge is to take all of that.
Tweets from Donald Trump. Tweets from Donald Trump. Donald Trump tweeting in the middle of your trading day.
Oh, man. Exactly. So how you do that in the platform, that's the art. I mean, you need good user interface design. And you also, I think, Simon, what you mentioned is the demographics. I think, I think we're all around the same age group, but I think people of our age and older have gotten used to trading platforms. But younger generations, I think a lot of them are turned off. I mean, I think I laughed at the time where they turned it into a game. And I think they're ahead of the time, actually, that once again, it's not a game, but to connect it to a more simple level does, at least in the beginning, help to get users to understand this. Because otherwise, like you mentioned, a lot of people, they start this off, and I think they get intimidated, and that's why they end up not doing it. Or like what Michael was saying, they fall into some kind of get rich quick thing because they didn't have that easy experience to figure it out. And it's not impossible, but that's the challenge, right?
And if we're talking like brokers specifically and markets and so on, I mean, if you go to Asia, it's you don't find people like the three of us who actually sometimes use our laptops and so on. It's mobile. Everything is mobile. I mean, in China, no one has a laptop, right? It's
well, we're Gen X.
just...
We're supposed to change the world, right? And now there's now there's the millennials who, you know, they see the world something different, and now there's Gen Z who are going to see the world even more different. They're going to be the ones that change the world. It's not going to be about, like, I think the millennials or Gen, I don't know what it is, but I think they see the world as they see the world as a fast growing place. But then you have the Gen Z who's like, we're going to change the world. So like they say a lot of Gen Z, they don't like capitalism. They're not for profit for this. So I think the way that they're going to affect the world is going to be totally different as well moving forward.
Not for capitalism, but you can, you know, on your phone connected to the internet from far away. Complain.
Exactly.
Capitalism is so awful while you're in an air-conditioned room with Netflix on the background. You know, the world, how bad the system is. The capitalism is the problem.
Yeah, go roll around in dirt for a day, and then, you know, tell us what it was. Exactly. Well, I guess we pretty much, like, this is a fun chat. Covered a lot.
Oh, absolutely.
We got to come back and maybe go deeper in what platforms look like and the future looks like, for sure. Should I leave it for any final comments? Simon, Jonathan, Simon, take it away if you had anything final to say.
No, I mean, definitely. Let's have another session sometime, Michael, and get a bit more into things. But no, it has been interesting.
Yeah, well, thank you very much, Simon. It was good to connect again. It's been a while since we spoke. And I mean, if the people watching, the users watching had specific questions, you know, I'm happy to have another one of these with Simon to go over the audience questions. I thought it was a lot of fun just to be able to have a chat and, you know, share my insights. Yeah, likewise, Simon, Jonathan. It's definitely been a blast. I had a lot of fun talking about where we were, where we're going, and what the future holds. I definitely thank you both for your time today, and thanks everyone for watching. All right, we'll see you again soon. Awesome. Thanks.
Thanks, Michael.
Good night.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.